Hello again, college football fans. What a wonderful weekend that we had in the league and all around the nation. November, mid-November is the time when the cake really starts to take shape. You really want to look at the oven window this time of year, because in September and October you're pretty much just looking at a pan of batter. You know, there might be a bubble in Columbus, Ohio, or a bubble in College Station, but it's basically still just batter. But now it's starting to look like a cake, and we're seeing what's happening. And I would say right now, your top four teams coming into this week, Georgia, Alabama, Oregon, and Ohio State, they're going to be the teams. If first of all, Alabama has to beat Georgia, but if Oregon and Ohio State win out and Alabama beats Georgia, then the four teams that are set already that are going to be in the playoffs. Now, if Georgia smacks Alabama down and Oregon loses, then things get very interesting, and we'll discuss that as we go ahead. Now, talking nationally about the three upset watches, the only one that hit this week was Oklahoma. Did go ahead and lose. You know, we all saw it coming. It's really a testament to Lincoln Riley that it's taken them this long in the season to finally lose a game, because they're not very good. But that finally happened. Now Notre Dame took care of their business, and so did Oregon. But Oregon still seems like they might be teetering. And the only reason that Notre Dame is still in the conversation is the possibility of chaos happening. I feel like Cincinnati and Notre Dame are both going to be locked out, as well as the winner of Bedlam. But the winner of Bedlam, Oklahoma State or Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Cincinnati, they are still a part of this. If Oregon loses, and if Georgia smacks Alabama and knocks them out, but Ohio State, Michigan, that'll take care of itself. But those are still the players that are involved. The ACC's done. Oregon's the only possibility for the Pac-12, and the only possibility, and it's an outside shot now for the Big 12, is if a little bit of chaos happens, then the winner of Bedlam is still got a shot, I suppose, mathematically. But that's what's going on nationally. As far as the league goes, wouldn't you know that the week that I kind of settle down and get a little bit conservative in my predictions, pretty much agreed with Vegas across the board this week, and it probably was going to turn out to be the worst week as far as picking winners and scores of games that I've had all year. Ole Miss has a lot to do with that. The state of Mississippi, altogether. I remember before COVID hit, during the holiday season in 2019, the discussion around college football was the splashy hires that both of the schools in Mississippi managed to land, and with Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss and Mike Leach obviously at Mississippi State, everybody said, look, Mississippi is the most interesting place in college football in the whole nation right now. And this week is exactly the kind of week that they were talking about when they were saying those things. Going to start off with Alabama. They took care of their business, obviously. The thing that's standing out about them right now is the trend is beginning. The last 2 weeks, Alabama hasn't been able to get a point out of their first drive, which was one of the real bright spots about our team leading up to the last couple of weeks, is that you could pretty much count on the fact that it's going to be 7-0. The other team is going to spot Alabama their first 7 when they get the ball first. But that hasn't happened the last couple of weeks, but hopefully that will turn around once we re-enter into league play. Because of the happenings around the rest of the Western Division this week, though, the path for Atlanta has been cleared a little bit for Alabama. I'm not certain. I haven't looked at the math, and I'm bad at that math anyway, but I'm pretty sure that Alabama's one win, if they win either Arkansas or Auburn, that clinches it. So, Alabama's not going to lose both of those games. They might get nicked in one. Neither one of those games seem as scary. Well, the Auburn doesn't seem as scary as it did a couple of weeks ago, and I'm glad of that. But Arkansas, they're still a little bit of a wild card, I suppose. But that's Alabama, and I was glad to see Ajay Hall get into the game. Sorry to see Roydell get hurt. He's one of my probably my favorite running back that we had, but that's just the way it goes. And we were already bone thin, bone dry at the running back spot anyway, so it's not really earth-shattering. I am glad to see that the other end spot is starting to get a little bit shored up. It's taken pretty much this far since we lost Chris Allen. Drew Sanders was starting to really show some signs of improvement and looked like a really good end there until he got hurt. But now Dallas Turner has moved in, and I think Drew Sanders is getting a little bit healthier as the weeks go on. And if Alabama manages to get into the playoff, I do believe that Christopher Allen will be a part of the roster again. But, you know, that's thinking way too far ahead at this point. But because of that, I believe that the defense is improving. And we've got all of the major, you know, dynamic offenses behind us at this point. So that is a good trend that's happening on the other side of the ball. But, you know, Alabama's just going to have to take care of their business. But moving on to the league, Auburn, Mississippi State, 43-34. Well, you know, this is what I get for picking against Mike Leach and saying that Auburn's defense was going to shut their passing attack down. They did for, you know, almost a half, but you got to play 2 halves there, Auburn. And this was not a good look for Harsin. As a matter of fact, all of the first-year coaches that have looked so promising, I mean, all the first-year coaches have been doing a bang-up job in the league this year. But a couple of them kind of took a hit this week, and Harsin was one of them. Blowing a 25-point lead at home is just not what we do in the SEC, and that's the first really, really nasty blemish on, like I said, what has otherwise been a pretty good first-year campaign for Harsin down there on the Plains. But Mississippi State and Mike Leach, they're continuing to do what they do, and that Egg Bowl is going to be very, very exciting this year. Maybe the most anticipated Egg Bowl in the history of that rivalry. But it stands to reason because of those coaches that they have over there. Sanford, Florida, good Lord in heaven. You know, I don't know what can be said about Florida now that hasn't already, but it's an absolute unmitigated disaster down there. And if I was Dan Mullen, he's in a real bad spot because, you know, last year he had a lot of cachet. There were rumors about him going to the NFL, but his legacy at Mississippi State is kind of getting tarnished because this is just awful. This is one of the most shocking developments that I've seen ever in this league. Giving up 52 points to a Division I AA school. You know, I don't think they're going to fire him, but if I was him, I would try to figure out a way to get out of there, but I know that there's too much money at stake. But I don't think that it's Mullen. I mean, I don't think that, unless he's just had an absolute nervous breakdown, how could you go from running such a steady ship that he seemingly ran at Starkville for a decade and then turning into this, going from an SEC championship appearance to this? I don't know what's going down there in Gainesville, but Mullen is... maybe his career is maybe being ruined because of that place. But, you know, I have no inside knowledge at all, but things are wild down there right now. We'll just put it that way. Georgia, Tennessee. Now, this is one of the picks that I almost hit right. 41-17. I picked a 42-20 win. Heupel definitely now is the best-looking first-year coach in the league this year. You can't really fault them for this performance. Georgia's great. The defense is great. Tennessee scored more points than anybody has on them this year, so nothing shameful for Tennessee. They're still having a much better season than anyone could have expected. So good for Heupel and good for Knoxville. It's been a long time since they could go into late November with a smile on their face, and you've definitely earned it if you're still wearing orange up there. South Carolina, Missouri. This was a toss-up game, I thought. I picked South Carolina to win this 30-24, and Missouri won it 31-28 instead. So this is just more evidence, really, of the dumpster fire that Florida is right now, because South Carolina goes from, you know, blowing Florida out to losing to Missouri. Yes, it was at their place, and yes, Tyler Beatty is one of the best, if not the best, running back in the country right now. So you got to hand it to Missouri. They're getting, they might wind up going to a bowl now, and we'll see how that develops as the season goes on, and we'll talk more about that in the Power Rankings video. Texas A&M, Ole Miss, another game where I expected a defense to do a job, and it did not. And Ole Miss, both of the defenses, I said going into this game that Ole Miss, their run defense was virtually non-existent. Wow. I don't think they heard me, but it sure seems like they heard me, because they really, and I know I'm not the only person that's been saying that, and they've been hearing that all season long, but they really put on a performance, that Ole Miss defense. Wow. Who could have seen that coming, really? They haven't shown any signs of life, especially against a team that can run all season long, and Texas A&M has been one of the best running teams in the league. And their defense, but they just, Calzada has not turned out. I think we might have had sort of a Steven Garcia situation when they beat Alabama. I mean, I think he just may have played the best game that he possibly could play that night. And we've seen since then, he's not quite that superstar that we thought that he was. But, so Jimbo Fisher, this season is turning out to be a disappointment for them. I mean, if they could have held on and won out after beating Alabama and after going through the quarterback crisis that they had early in the season, but now it's kind of back to where he's been since he's been at Texas A&M, and that's just not being able to do what they hired him to do. But he may not even be there next year. He may be the LSU coach, so I don't think he's sweating it too much, to be honest. Kentucky, Vanderbilt. This is another pick that I made that actually turned out pretty good. I picked Kentucky to double up on Vanderbilt, 28-14. They did double up on them, but it was 34-17 instead, so that worked out pretty well. Vanderbilt's coach is a first-year coach, and the fact that he got one win at all, and they got 2 wins, so I mean he's been floating on gravy for the for the whole season as far as I'm concerned. So we'll see how that moves on, but it's Vandy, so who cares? Stoops has been able to do what he does, which is win more games than people expect Kentucky to win, but he just cannot seem to get over the hump. He's in danger now of kind of winding up in that Dan Mullen territory where I think maybe 2 or 3 seasons ago he could have cashed in some of what he has built in Kentucky to get a big time job somewhere else, but I think he may have hung around too long, and he's just a steady coach, and he doesn't really have that sort of superstar looking quality that he might have been boiling up there in Kentucky before that. But good season for Kentucky, and he's a good solid coach, and I still say that he'd be a good hire somewhere, but things develop quickly in this, especially in this league, and you have to strike while the iron's hot, and he may have lost his opportunity, but hey, he's got a good gig up there in Kentucky, and he might wind up just retiring there, and if he does, more power to him. He's doing a great job, and he's doing as good a job as any Kentucky football fan can hope for. So Arkansas, LSU. LSU is continuing to impress, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They're going to that, devil may care, blitzing, and I've said my whole life that I grew up watching the brother Bill Oliver defense at Alabama in 1992, where he would put all 11 guys on the line and 8 guys at the box always, and worked out pretty well for him. And seems like maybe defensive coaches are overthinking things nowadays because it's working for LSU as well. But Sam Pittman and Arkansas was able to overcome that and get the overtime victory, and their great season is continuing. It looked a little shaky there for a while, but Sam Pittman is done enough here in the final month now that I think you can say that Arkansas has beaten expectations by a pretty good margin this year, and they're still a team on the rise. So I expect good things from them moving forward. And that's all I got this week on the review video. And we'll be coming out with the power rankings and others very soon. But thanks for watching again.